Am I the asshole for cutting off my jealous mom? When I was going through puberty, my mom started comparing my body to hers. She would say things like, you know what, it's okay that you're not developing as quickly as I did, or that her boobs were already much bigger than mine were when I was 14. Here's a little backstory on my family. My mom has always been extremely dramatic and I think toxic. I feel bad calling her toxic. On the other hand, I have a great relationship with my dad. And my two siblings are both guys, so they don't have the same experience I did with my mom. My dad always acted as a buffer between me and my mom, even though my mom was the one that was starting all the fights. When I got into high school, I realized how attractive I was. Honestly, I had no clue that I was even a pretty girl. Looking back now, I realized that my mom really did make me feel like I was less than. When I started getting attention from boys in high school, I was really happy. I finally felt like I was seen. And because my mom wasn't there, I was able to thrive. Whereas in my house, I would even dress down in front of my mom just so that she wouldn't get jealous of me. The first time I brought a boy over to our house, my mom totally flipped out. She said that I was acting like an SLUT, but really, this boy was only a friend. My dad, thank God, told her that she needed to relax and that I was allowed to have friends. Eventually, I started dating a boy behind my mom's back. I did tell my dad though. My dad was actually happy for me. This boyfriend was like my best friend. I could tell him everything and he always responded really positively and gave me really good advice about my mom. But one day, one of my brothers let it slip that I had a boyfriend. My mom punished me for an entire month. My dad tried to intervene, but my mom went crazy. Here's the thing. She made me break up with him and then I caught her flirting with him. Part 2 is, am I the asshole for cutting off my jealous mom? When I caught her flirting with my now ex, who she made me break up with, I pretended like I didn't hear her. But she was flirting with him. She told him that he had really good muscles and that he looked a lot older than he was. Thank God, my ex didn't respond and went home. Afterwards, I confronted my mom and told her that I overheard the conversation. She told me that I was being a snob. I didn't talk to her for about 3 days. On the third day, she came crying to my room. She wanted us to make up. So she decided to take me shopping at the mall. Being the toxic person that she is, she managed to make everything about her. Tried on a bunch of clothes, which actually did look really good on her. Oh, by the way, my mom was a model back in the 90s, so she's kind of stuck in that mindset. She thinks she's the most beautiful person. She thinks she's the best. Anyway, when it was my turn to try on some clothes, she said that I looked a little too tubby, that I should maybe lose a few pounds. I told her that she hurt my feelings and she instantly apologized. Our relationship kept going like this up until I was 18. When I finally moved away for college, I was the happiest I'd ever been. Being away from my mom was like a breath of fresh air. But of course, it never stopped. My mom decided to come visit me to college and I knew that I needed to be prepared for that. When she came over to my dorm, I made sure it was super clean. Also, my grades were super good and I basically had a few friends but no boyfriend. When she came over to my apartment, she was like, oh, it's so simple. I was like, what do you mean? She said that I needed to decorate and show my personality more. She stayed with me for a total of 3 days and the whole time I was grinding my teeth. When she finally left, I was happy again. Then my dad came to visit. Hanging out with my dad was the best. Took me shopping for my apartment and made me feel so at home. My mom got jealous. Part 3 is, am I the asshole for cutting off my jealous mom? Disclaimers is not my story time, instead of me on Instagram. Then she somehow managed to get jealous that my dad and I were getting along super well. She called my dad while my dad was visiting me and threw a tantrum about how she needed him to go home. So my dad cut his trip short just to go be with my insecure mother. After that, I really didn't speak to my mom for about 2 months. I couldn't believe that she always managed to make me feel less than. And somehow she always made everything about her. I reached out to my brothers and asked them if they ever felt the same about my mom, and they said no. My mom was totally different with them. She took care of them and doted on them. Probably because they're boys and not me, because I'm a girl. One day I decided to call my grandmother and I told her everything. That's when my grandma told me that my mom has always been that way and that I just shouldn't take it personally. Apparently when my mom was growing up, she did not have any girlfriends. She always liked staying away from other women to not have any competition. But I told my grandma that she's my mom and that she shouldn't see me as competition. Grandma suspects that something is wrong with my mom, so, I don't know if she's bipolar or something, but obviously I can't diagnose her. Thankfully, I have other women in my life, my grandma and 2 of my aunts. They act like my moms more than my own mother. When I graduated college, I was actually engaged. My fiance and I bought a house and we started planning our wedding. And of course, my mom wanted to help me plan it. I really didn't want this, but I decided to give her a chance. But once again, she managed to make everything about her. The entire time, she criticized my choices, even my wedding dress, which I absolutely loved, and it really did look good on me. She told me I needed to wear something more flattering. And then she ended up wearing my wedding dress in a different color. After the wedding, I decided to tell my dad and my brother brothers that I was gonna cut my mom off. My dad begged me not to, but I still went ahead and did it. I called my mom and told her that I needed some time apart from her and that I did not want her calling me. Of course, she pretended like she had never done anything wrong in my life and that she's only been the perfect dedicated mother that she wishes she could be. Instead of arguing with her, I told her to just give me some space. She agreed to it, and I haven't spoken to her in about 3 months. My dad and grandma keep begging me to talk to her. I don't think my mom is sad at all. She's always posting to her Instagram. She goes to Pilates, brunch with her friends, and travels with my dad. I think she's probably fine, but what should I do? Story time about how I was harassed at the gas station. A few years ago when I lived in LA, I would walk everywhere. By the way, you guys want more of my own story time, so here we go. The year was 2016. The victim was me. No, but seriously. I didn't have a car at the time. Actually, I still don't have a car because I can't afford one. So I would take the train or the bus everywhere. On this day, I had an audition in Santa Monica, so I decided to take the bus and then the train. When I got off the train, I walked my cute little tush over to the gas station to grab a bottle of water. I went inside, grabbed my water, and I noticed this guy staring at me. You girls know when a guy is staring at you and he's doing it on purpose. Yeah, that's what he was doing. He wanted me to see him staring at me. I quickly exited and started heading toward my audition, which was like 5 blocks away. I was about 20 feet from the gas station when I hear him yelling at me. He started saying like, hey, do you need a ride? Do you need a ride? And I just said, no, thank you. And I kept walking. Cars were on the street, so I couldn't cross the street just then. So he decided to get in his car and pull up right next to me. As he did this, I could hear him complimenting my body. He started talking about my bum and other parts of my body. I put on my headphones and I just ignored him. But obviously this made him even more upset, right? Because, you know, although I did not put music on because I wanted to hear exactly what was going on. That's when he started saying that I was a bitch and other things for not talking to him. Oh yeah, and then I needed someone to teach me a lesson. Finally, I was able to cross the street and I kept walking. This man turned onto the wrong side of the road so that he could drive right next to me and continue to harass me. He started telling me what he was going to do to me if I actually ever got into his car. I knew that if I responded, it would only accelerate his anger, so I literally did not say anything and kept ignoring him. Finally, some cars were going his way, so he had to get out of the lane and turn around. But this man literally made a U-turn on the street to come back to continue harassing me. I was literally on the verge of tears, but I was like, I'm not gonna let this guy see me cry. Saw a cafe 2 doors down and I decided to walk in. And you better believe he stopped in front of the cafe and just stared inside, waiting for me to come out. Mind you, I had 20 minutes to get to this audition and there was no late I was going to be on time because being on time means being late. But I also did not want him to see where I was going. I went up to the girl at the register and explained to her what was happening. And I just started to cry. Luckily, she was super nice. She gave me a glass of water and just told me to sit down. Luckily, this guy didn't have any patience, so he did drive away. And then I was finally able to walk to the audition, which was like another 3 blocks away. This is why I always used to wear oversized shirts over any dress that I had. Like I have this really big button-up shirt that just hides my body perfectly, but still this happened. No, I didn't have time to get his license plate. I still remember what he looks like and what kind of car he was driving, but honestly, what am I going to do? Call the cops and be like, hey, this guy harassed me? I sometimes literally stand in front of my closet and think, no, I'm not going to wear that unless I'm with my husband. If you have any similar stories, please comment below because I know I'm not the only one. Also, no matter what you're wearing, you should never be approached like that. If you ever find yourself in a situation like that, just go into a store and wait it out. Who cares? It's better than having them follow you to where you live, you know? Just be safe out there. I love you guys. Bye.
My racist parents hate my boyfriend because of his skin color but refuse to admit it. They are trying to force me to cut him out of my life. My boyfriend and I have been dating for 6 years. We met at college where we started dating. My parents met him early on by joining us at dinner. I figured due to my parents' upbringing they would have a problem with my boyfriend being black, but surprisingly it was all good at the dinner. Fast forward a few months, my parents invited me up to our cabin and my boyfriend joined. We took my car because it was already loaded with what we would need for the duration of the stay. After we arrive, my dad pulls me aside and yells at me how wrong it is that I drove and that we took my car. He's the man, he should be driving. This is when it all started going downhill. The cabin is in a cold place, so my boyfriend wore a sweatshirt with his hood up during some of the time at the cabin. My parents to this day cite this as weird and rude as well as a reason they don't like him. As we continued our relationship, it became clear that my parents don't like him. I could tell it was racism. Comments like his kind or those people were made often. I called them out on their racism, but they denied it time and time again. The thing is, they will fully admit they do not like him, but will never give an exact reasoning, much less admit that it is because they're racist. They'll say he's just not a good fit for the family. They don't tell me to stop dating him, but they do tell me that I need to keep them and him separate. They don't want to really hear about him and he's not welcome at their house or cabin. He's never cheated on me, abused me, he has no substance problems, has always been polite to my parents, nothing that a normal parent would cite as a problem. It can only be because HS is black. Eventually it became an ultimatum given to me by my parents. They tell me that if you continue to date him, eventually it will be either him or us and you'll have to choose. Among other things, they would tell me that he'd never be an attorney, which is what he wanted to do, and insinuating that he probably wouldn't be much of anything at all due to his genetically inferior intellect. It baffles me how they can say stuff like this but deny that they're racist. Anyway, after undergrad I started working at a financial firm. He graduated from undergrad at UC Berkeley and was accepted to law school across the country. We were always very serious about each other and made the decision to do long distance until he graduated and moved back to California. My boyfriend has since graduated from law school, moved home, and took the bar last month. He starts work this October, and had a contract since last year. My parents have known about this as well. Now, 6 years into our relationship, I call my parents and tell them that we are going to be moving in together. About 20 minutes later I get a text from my mom, saying that she doesn't want to rain on my parade but that this path excludes her and my dad from my future. That they love me but they can't be in my life if I choose to be with my boyfriend. I told them I would never understand. Since then, they have sent me more and more text messages saying stuff like, "We feel like we're losing our daughter, this is heartbreaking," and so on. And all at the same time including that this is my choice and my fault. I texted my parents that I thought my boyfriend and I should come over and talk, that texting about this kind of thing is stupid, but not to be patronized or belittled, and if it turned to screaming that we would leave. My parents then replied that they wanted to see me face to face to talk but that my boyfriend isn't allowed. My boyfriend even called my father the night of the initial "we can't be part of your life" text to try and talk or meet up and see if there was a way to talk through any legitimate concerns. My dad did not answer and responded. Until a week plus later, only to text him that they haven't really ever liked him, that he wants to work through it with me alone, and it's mine and my boyfriend's fault for not trying to address things earlier. My racist parents hate my boyfriend because of his skin color but refuse to admit it. They are trying to force me to cut him out of my life. After a lot more manipulation from my parents' side, I caved and drove down alone to meet them. Of course my boyfriend was not invited. When I got there it was very strange. Walking into your parents' house and feeling like you're meeting strangers is weird. After about an hour of small talk, we got into the conversation about the elephant in the room, my parents' closeted racism. A previous text that week had said, "We don't expect to change your mind about him and who he is. We just want to talk." But it's clear that this in-person meeting was a last-ditch attempt to shake me from my reality and into theirs. My dad came at me from every angle. "He's not a man's man, I don't respect him, I hate him, he's taking away the most precious thing in our life, how could you not hate someone like that?" Even at some point physically threatening him. They were literally throwing out every excuse possible except admitting that it is because he is black. My mom was agreeing too. It was all-out war on my boyfriend. They tell me I'm depriving them of a son-in-law. They say he is selfish for not breaking up with me years ago when he realized that my parents didn't like him. It ended up being a 3-hour-long conversation. Most of the time was spent by them berating him, calling him every name in the book, and making up a super long list of very invalid reasons for not liking him. They even tried to argue that what they were doing was not an ultimatum. During my dad's humongous rant, he exposed himself accidentally by almost calling him the N-word, but caught himself before he said it. He did however refer to his people more than once. He also threw out some really vulgar stereotypes, all while never admitting that race was the issue. I tried my best to defend him even though I knew it was hopeless. I told them how wonderful he was through some of the toughest times in my life and how he supported and kept me sane when even my parents were coming down on me about how I wasn't doing enough. They said that's what any boyfriend would do. They also said, "We feel like you're not listening to us," in reference to the fact I'm not just blindly agreeing to break up with my boyfriend. Towards the end I actually exploded. My dad specifically made a disgusting joke about my boyfriend and I living in the jungle in the future and I couldn't take it anymore. I went into a huge rant about how blatantly racist they are. In my heat of rage I told them that even Steve Wonder could see how racist they were. My rant went on for a few minutes and after it my parents hung their head in shame, not saying anything. They did not admit it, but they did not deny it like all the other times I have blamed their dislike towards my boyfriend on racism. In the end, I had to break the news that my boyfriend and I signed a lease and have already moved in together. They did not take this lightly and were dumbfounded. My mom started crying. My dad kept saying, "You messed up kid." They essentially forced me out of the house after that. They both let me out with no hug or even worded goodbye. I got in the car and drove home just totally exhausted and confused. I got home and just started spilling everything that they said to my boyfriend. He was not surprised, but was very proud of me for how I handled it and we decided to go no contact with my parents there and then. We also started looking at potential therapists for me that same day. My boyfriend was extra proud of me for going on the rant about their racism and making them ashamed of themselves. He was so proud in fact, that later that night he put me in handcuffs in bed and made me forget all about what happened earlier.
What was something you saw that you were definitely not supposed to see? My babysitter accidentally showed me her intimacy tape. When I was 12 or so I had a babysitter that would come for a couple hours after school before my parents came back from work. She was a family friend and a sophomore in college I believe. She was really cute and I had mini crush on her at the time. Anyways, it was the start of the school year and she had just come back from a trip she took with her boyfriend to Paris. I remember her enthusiastically telling me all about it, saying how much fun she had. We were sitting on a couch in my living room and she started showing me a bunch of pictures from the trip on her phone, the cathedral, Eiffel Tower, museums and whatnot. As she was scrolling through, she got to this video that was kind of like a montage of her and her boyfriend doing activities together. There was a scene of her holding her boyfriend's hand walking back into their hotel room, then it cut to a scene of her lying on her hotel bed completely naked, legs spread, telling her boyfriend to come get it. She jumped out of her seat, tried to cover my eyes and told me to never tell anyone. I remember being a combination of shocked, envious, and turned on. She then told me to never tell anyone what I saw, but not going to lie, Lily, if you see this. That was the main topic of me and my boys' lunch table conversation the next day at middle school.